Well, hello out there. This is Sam Kilmer, Managing Director, Cornerstone Advisors, and welcome to another episode of Fintech Hustle. I'm joined by a rock star crew here, and more importantly, we are in Vegas. We are in the hall in Vegas, in the Aria, specifically in the Convention Center West, Level 2. I think we're just upstairs from the wedding chapel and down from Jeffrey Pilcher's great service team, and at the Reg Desk, and so we're here at Financial Brand Forum, which is, as I like to call it, the Coachella of banking. It's been a fantastic day, and I'm joined by some rock stars here. So let's, without further ado, jump right into that. So first off, my co-host Ron Shevlin, our Chief Research Officer, who was here at Financial Brand leading a masterclass on AI with some other industry heavies. Ron will probably tell you a little bit more about some of the takeaways from that. And then we also have, joining Ron and I, we have Laura Costello from Meridianlink, and also Carlos Carvajal from Q2. So we have a couple of big, as Ron Shevlin, the other Ron was Ron Burgundy, like to say, these guys are kind of a big deal. You may have heard of Q2 and Meridianlink. This is a conference about marketing. Although I would say upwards of half the attendees now are, chief lending officers, CEOs, and other folks. But it's an event that has its spawning, if you will, a marketing viewpoint. And so we thought it would be a really good idea to get some perspectives of some of the heavies of marketing inside the industry. And so welcome, Carlos, and welcome, Laura. Thank you. So I'm already losing it, and I swear it's not a hangover, even though this is Vegas. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I should have had them leave the name tags on, but we were afraid of reflections off the name tags. But instead, what we should have been afraid of was me forgetting their names, which is way more awkward if we can be really honest about it. Okay. So it is the icebreaker. Now it can only get better from here. Okay. So I think one of the things that I just am devilishly curious about, since you're both, sort of veteran industry marketers, is like, what does a day in the life look like for you guys when you're out there doing your day to day? I don't know if you want to give it a shot first, Carlos.
Thank you, Sam. So day in the life, it's a little bit crazy right now. I mean, the key thing that we're always looking at is what can we do to better serve our customers in everything that we're doing. So, for example, day in life right now, I'll just give a real example. We have our own major event coming up. We have major initiatives that we're rolling out as well. So how does that connect back to, how does that add value to our customers? Is the content right? So it's just working with each team. But honestly, I don't know if it's true to just marketing, but it applies that to everything. And this may sound cheesy, but I'll say it anyway. My main thing is like, what can I do to enable the team to be successful? Like, am I genuinely helping them? Am I removing obstacles? Am I getting them the things that they need? Those kind of things. And then within that to tie that back to marketing, that could tie back to systems. It could tie back to marketing automation. We're starting looking at AI, targeting. Are we actually going after the right customers or not? Where are we wasting time? That's one of the things. And I don't know if you're running into this, but it feels like everybody is just so busy, right? So that's a big part of it too. Day in life is, what can we take off our plate? Like, what's not making an impact? What are things that we can do more efficiently and all that kind of stuff as well. So just helping the team any way I can.
Great. Laura, what about day in your life?
Yeah, so I lead the product marketing team at Meridianlink, and we recently shifted. Well, we actually just recently finished Meridianlink Live, which is our big conference. That just completed a couple weeks ago in Nashville. That took up a good quarter of our time. My team created all of the sessions. I think there were 70 concurrent sessions or something like that. They did all the work. So in that instance, making sure I'm giving them the tools that they need to create strong content. What are the blockers that they're having, and everything that you're just saying about efficiency. But then we also are shifting, now that that's over. My focus is on growing our business. We've got a really strong customer base, and how can we make that even bigger? And how can we make inroads in the community banking space? So my team is taking that on. We've been working with you on that. And really, what does that look like? What new content do we need? What's the buyer journey we're creating? And really mapping that out from scratch, because we haven't had that at this point.
Yeah, Carlos.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just real fast. we talked a little bit about this earlier, but just the evolution of marketing over the last even 5 to 10 years as being a critical part of the revenue engine and the sales engine, right? And I think that's a key part of what we look at. And as far as when we talk to marketers here, that connection that's stronger into how are we growing deposits, retention, all those kind of things come into play more than ever. So it's really interesting to see that too.
Well, and I heard a real consistent thread between one of you both mentioned content, and I'm thinking back, when I first came to Financial Brand Forum. I know, Ron, you've been coming to this event for longer than I have, and speaking at it longer than I've been coming here, and it seems like, well, definitely content has been totally on the rise in terms of an effective vehicle to reach people when they're just not, sauntering into branches or whatever, but just showing people that you care and add value. And so that's kind of one thing. I think the other thing in terms of, getting people ready for content and removing obstacles, also making sure that if you have any podcast hosts, for example, that they remember the names of their guests. So I think we can both agree that would probably a good thing to do. But Ron, I'm just curious, you've been coming to this event since forever. What's changed, like, when you think about it? Because is this your first financial brand, Carlos, or have you been long time ago? And this is your fifth one, Laura, fifth or sixth. So Ron, when was your first financial brand? What would you say has changed?
My first financial brand forum was the first financial brand forum. I've known Jeffrey Pilcher, CEO of Financial Brand, since 2007, early 2007. And in fact, when I started blogging in 2006, he was one of the first readers. He would comment a lot, and I was like, this is a bright guy. And the funny thing is, and I hope he remembers this, like late 2007, I get a phone call from a guy who goes, Ron, it's Jeffrey Pilcher. Like, oh man, I've never actually talked to you in person before. He goes, let's start a website. I'm like, dude, I got 3 kids I got to put through college. I'm not quitting this. And he started Financial Brand, and it became this. So I think it was around 2014 when the first one was there. And what has really shifted is this has gone from a marketing conference to an industry conference. Jeffrey rightfully saw that there was a huge gap in the industry. There were bank marketing conferences and credit union marketing conferences, and they tended to be very kind of tactically oriented, not technology oriented. And he filled a big gap by bringing both banks and credit unions together, focusing on marketing and marketing technology. And it has really evolved to becoming an industry. This is as much fintech and strategy, and it's not just marketing. Back in the day, it was a lot of mid-level marketing people in banks and credit unions, and you got a lot of CMOs, and now CLOs, Chief Experience Officers. It's become an industry event. I want to ask these guys a question, Sam, if you can. Because Carlos, you kind of alluded to something quickly there that I've had on top of my head for a good month and a half now, and it's marketing's role in the organization. I had a conversation with an old professor of mine a couple of weeks ago, who's a professor at Harvard now, and he kind of laid out for me how marketing is in decline in a lot of industries and not having the strategic impact that it used to have, like in the big consumer product goods firms. And I want to ask you guys, do you see that in your own organizations? But just as importantly, do you see this at all in your client organizations? Laura, you want to start
Sure.
off on that?
I definitely do not see it in our organization. Since I came on board at Meridianlink, I think it was 3 years ago, the team has definitely at least doubled, maybe tripled since I joined. We've got a new CMO who's really focused. We are all focused on building pipeline. It's really focusing on sales in a much different way than I've focused in the past. I think that's one thing I'm seeing as a difference is it's not just putting out good content and then like crossing your fingers. It's putting out good content and really making sure it's driving pipeline and moving from there. So I'm definitely seeing it's not going backwards. If anything, it's growing and becoming more important.
What about financial?
Probably, I don't know that I'm seeing a huge difference either. I think if anything, it's more just staying the same. I haven't seen a huge increase or a decrease, at least with our customers at this point.
Got it. I'll start with the customers, and just speaking openly, I think it's a little mixed. I think there is strong interest and demand in improving marketing, But I think some, especially in the smaller community banks and credit unions, they're trying to figure out how to get there, right? Because the teams are pretty small. It's not like they have really strong data competencies or digital marketing competencies, even for that matter. So there's a recognition that they want to get there, but they're not exactly sure how to get there. And that's one area that they need help. On the Q2 side, definitely not seeing that. Quite the opposite. I have this fundamental belief that marketing can and should be a force multiplier for the company, because it's one of those things, whether it's a product launch, whether it's demand gen, whether it's just brand. Take this event that you talked about. It is something that creates energy. It's something that creates a lot of excitement in the company for everybody. And if you can keep doing that over and over again while you're driving demand, while you're sharing stories about your customers that are amazing and the impact they're making on their communities and more, it makes the engineers feel better about the products they're building when they know the impact it's making on a human being in a community. And then you can rewind that all the way back through the support organization, the delivery organization, the product organization, the sales organization, and more. So I'm not seeing it, but if you can't connect back at some level to data and results, it's like, hey, we spent X amount of money. Like, what are we actually getting out of it? Then there's going to be a problem. So we've put a ton of time into our data infrastructure, and we still got a ways to go. There's always room for improvement, but that's really key, because if you can't demonstrate ROI, you're going to have a problem.
To make a comment on that, I mean, I think one of the things, Laura, you mentioned pipeline. Historically, pipeline was the domain, rightly or wrongly, of sales. And in the banking world, that would be what? Lenders, or heads of payments, or maybe heads of retail. Whereas marketing was sort of pre-pipeline, or you say top of funnel or something like that. And I kind of feel like people are having these whole pipeline conversations now, where it's just like, I don't want to have two pipeline conversations where there's top of funnel brand and then there's bottom of funnel deal, right? But that there's like some kind of connectivity through that. And so I think what's really interesting to me is at the same time, Ron, your point about marketing being in decline. I think if there's anything that I've seen being in some kind of decline, it would be uppercase M marketing, which would be a department, versus lowercase m marketing, which would be the activity. I'm reminded of a financial brand forum I came to 4 or 5 years ago. And I was meeting a CEO of a large credit union here, and we were talking about a merger that we were working on with him. And I asked him, I said, I'm just curious why you're here. Like, why are you at this event? And I thought his answer was really insightful, which was, he said, look, I'm a finance person. I came up as a CFO. I know a lot about financials. I know about deals. I know about loans. I don't know anything about marketing. I don't know anything about this stuff. And I think that this stuff is going to define a big part of our future success, unlike our past success. I thought it was a really insightful thing, because it seems like there's more and more executives across the C-suite that are interested in marketing lowercase m, while there might be diminished control or diminished team resources, whatever, in some of the bank departments. But, anyway, no matter who's doing it, I guess one question I had for you all is, as you've been roaming the halls here of Financial Brand in the exhibit hall, you had lots of people visiting your coffee machine. You guys were making hats. We got, listen, we got mad respect. Okay. I love coffee and I love hats. So you guys had me at hello. Okay. So you've been talking to a lot of people, and you've also been maybe somewhere in the middle there in a couple of sessions. What topics or threads or conversations have you heard here that really maybe stuck with you, that like, hey, this is either a new topic or maybe something that's coming back that really kind of captivated you, or do you think is kind of driving some of the conversations you're all having? Anyone want to go first?
It's almost exactly what you were just talking about. I was talking to a credit union last night, and it was a CMO, and she was talking about how she really wants to be able to track from the click to approved to funded for her loan. And she's like, I'm trying to figure out how to do it, and thinking of it in a way that I don't think I had those conversations with my marketing contacts before. They were concerned about like how many clicks we're going to get and then moving forward. But it was all the way down to the ROI and the success. So that was very different for me. And I walked in today expecting, or yesterday, that there would be all about AI. Everyone's going to be talking about AI. And it's definitely a piece. It's definitely important. But what I'm hearing a lot is, I've got abandoned applications. How do I find those people and follow up with them and make sure? And so I'm like, oh, I can talk. These are things that we've been talking about for years. I can talk to this. This is great. But I was surprised that we're still talking about how do we solve for these challenges that we've been talking about for a while. And we're not digging into AI yet when you can't track your.
Excellent. Yeah, just a conversation this morning, and it ties into your presentation earlier, Sam, your breakout session with Jim, more around the embedded fintech. What's interesting and what we're seeing more and more is, 2 or 3 years ago, they were rolling out like conversational chat, those kind of things. And now it's like, yeah, I'm looking into a digital refer a friend program because they're trying to figure out deposit growth strategies. And that's what I think is interesting is everyone's talking deposits and these kind of things, but they're also trying to figure out, well, what can I do using data? What can I do using the fintech ecosystem, which goes on forever? So I thought that was really interesting because even in the conversation, we started around like one use case around refer a friend through digital channels. Then it shifted just part of the conversation. Oh, I heard another credit union is actually, can't remember the name of the vendor, but actually figuring out how to get up to 25% of their pay early so that they can avoid people having to do payday loans, right? People being taken advantage of. And it's just pretty fascinating the number of use cases that are being applied right now that are actually being rolled out versus talked about.
Yeah, and Ron, I know you had a AI masterclass. I know Chris Nichols. You had several people in there presenting with you. But I mean, other than AI, what are some of the other things you're hearing here at the event?
Nothing. It's all about AI. AI 24/7. Listen, after doing that session, I think people think I don't know anything but that. But I actually think there's also this interest in kind of what's coming down the pike. So look, if you're going to be a successful anything C-level or executive, it's kind of about spinning the plates. Yeah, you got to fix today's problems, but you really got to be looking at what's coming down the pike. And it isn't all about AI. We're looking at things, I guess, well, maybe virtual reality is kind of, but it's kind of as these large language models and the chat bots become more utilized. You know what? It's kind of like the next iteration of what search engine was, what Google was. And you've got to, as a marketer, start looking at, well, how are these large language models influencing people's choices of products? How is it making recommendations? And recognizing that, everything you put up online right now as a brand asset or brand communication is factoring into how these large language models are looking at. I think a lot of people are starting to think about, what does this mean to our organization? What does it mean from a marketing capability and competency perspective? So, it's not about AI, but it's about where the technology is changing. And love to see what you guys think in terms of what's coming down the pike from a tech perspective that's going to influence marketing, both from your own organizations. But look, your clients are looking at you to advise them on what's happening from a marketing perspective.
You want to take this one first? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing new.
Hold the logo out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sam gets really
It's a vanity thing.
And I'm in marketing. It's like brand. Hey, you forgot her name. Give me a break. There you go. All right. What was the question again? I'm playing. As far as some of the newer technologies and things in marketing, and I need to sit still with this thing. Sorry. It's the same old things that keep coming up, but really the use case around them. So like data targeting, though that is front and center as far as whether we're doing it for our customers or whether our customers want to do it for their customers. How do you effectively get the right products and services or even the right content in front of the right people at the right time? So looking at technologies that help with that, I think is really key. And then on the AI side, there's a lot of focus there. I think, Sam mentioned some of this earlier, which is less about AI to start, more about the use cases. Like, what are the actual use cases? What are the productivity gains you're trying to do, automation, et cetera? We're seeing a lot of things in commercial banking in that area, but we're also seeing some in consumer. So, but it kind of starts with the business outcome and the use cases, and then you work it back from there.
Yeah, and I think similar to what you're saying, the conversations we're having are all around personalization. automation and data-driven marketing, data-driven communications, relevant messaging, relevant product to the people. And I know we've been talking about that for a while, but still, it's still a top of mind, and people are still looking for those solutions.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I heard coming up in the hall was people developing and industry providers. I was talking specifically to James Robert Lay and also to James White over at Total Expert. And one of the conversations that we got into that is sort of like I'm seeing in the hall is people that are developing not just use cases, but almost productizing around things that can go easily down market to let's say a $500 million credit union that doesn't really have any data people. It's like, okay, so we can come up with ideas that people can go execute, but the problem is they don't have anybody. And when they don't have anybody, that's a problem. So the more that you can almost kind of like do the work for them, package it up, and get it ready, if not to do the work, to give them something to react to so that they can riff off of it and go, oh, okay, yeah, that's a great idea for mortgage customers. Yeah, it turns out mortgage isn't that important to us, but I could see doing something like that for some new checking accounts, where they're just changing it around just a little bit, and then they can plug it in without having to develop it from scratch because they just don't have anybody around the shop, doing it. We're talking about marketing in decline. Maybe it's not in decline, but it may not be that they're getting a lot more people, let's just say, on their team. So they're just having to move people around. I am curious, given that you guys are both hosting your own events, you're here talking with lots of people, and would love to get your sense for, things that you see working well and not working well in the industry. I think we're always just kind of learning from each other. I always like to say people come to consultants asking for best practices, but what I find that they really like are worst practices. Like they want to know, okay, what really effed up bad so that I can learn from it and maybe even get a great idea from it. What do you think? Is there just something that you think is working really well right now in the industry that just strikes you as just really humming along, or, let's just call it a best practice or something that's working really well? One of you jump in?
Working not well, if I can go that direction. Okay, yeah.
Are you kidding?
It's her work with consultants that aren't working well. So careful what you ask for, little girl.
Well, I mean, this was what came up over and over again last night, was that people have multiple providers. They're not speaking to each other. They can't get to the answer of what's working, what's not working. And there's lots of ways that you can get those to be integrated. And people seem that they're just struggling. They're so tied. Their hands are feeling so tied that they're not sure where to go to solve for that. And so what was great for us is having conversations of different ways, whether it's with us or with other folks, of how you can tie those together. And it's really not that complicated. But the fact that was almost every conversation, people not able to connect the dots, is clearly that's still a challenge.
Great point. As far as working well, I touched on it earlier, but the advancements that we see in the embedded fintech world, as far as deployments of technology that are actually making a difference for the FI and for the communities as well, I think is working really well. We're seeing that just pick up really fast on the embedded fintech side. What I'll say is not going to work well, and I'd love y'all's thoughts on this, is waiting. Like for the financial institutions that are kind of sitting back on AI, I don't want to deal with this right now. The regulators, I'm not really sure about the data side of this, the targeting, the personalization. We're talking to financial institutions about Gen Z. We'll deal with that later, right? So I think waiting is going to cost FIs a lot, right? Because they're just, I think it's time, right, on a lot of these fronts.
First off, I love that term embedded fintech. I don't know who came up with that, but I'm really into it. No, yeah. I got a question for the two of you, though, and I hate to go back to an earlier conversation, but I don't think you need to convince anybody that content marketing is important. That's a done deal. But what kind of content specifically is working well for you, or have you said, gosh, this isn't resonating?
Yeah, I mean, our number one content driver that's working is still webinars. Even though we question that, they're long form, we keep thinking that they're going to stop being successful because people want short, fast answers. They're super popular. Our customers get annoyed if we stop having them. It's really, really really important. And then the other is things like this podcast, videos, anything that is really just kind of moving short form, as well as any kind of reports, white paper research. People are dying for research and answers.
Before you pass it on,
Yeah.
any particular topics that you find are really resonating?
I think what we're finding is the growing deposits, what you just said. And part of that could be because we're putting a lot of effort into that. But when we're looking at, what is being downloaded the most, what's being watched the most, it's always tied to the growing deposits.
Yeah, as far as types of content, it varies quite a bit. Now I'm paranoid, like staring down at this thing. So as far as, growing deposits, that's a great one. Looking at it broadly, payments and payments innovation, given everything that's happened in the payments world, is a really hot topic, and we're seeing a lot of engagement with that. Frankly, we're talking about deposit growth, and it goes beyond deposits, is small business. Like, we're seeing a lot of credit unions, community banks looking at, like, we have to get into small business banking and actually figure that out, bank the operators. So a lot of the content around small business best practices, how do you actually start a business banking practice, and all those kind of things come into play. Then, as you'd expect, Gen AI and AI in general, hot. And then, to your point, podcasts and webcasts still work really well.
Fraud. You're saying fraud's a huge topic. On the generating deposits, obviously that has been a huge topic here and recently. To Ron's point, it's kind of like content. It's the ship has sailed. It's the how-to. And Tristan Green, one of our colleagues, wrote up a Gonzo Banker article 3-4 months ago, and when he dug into banks and credit unions that had grown their deposits consecutive 4 quarters. And he just kind of dug into what are some things that are in common amongst them. And I shared this in a session earlier that Jim Burson, you alluded to, Carlos. And the 3 things were they have an aggressive digital account opening type of situation. They have some type of engagement-related rewards checking account, meaning Ron, you've written a lot about product, and it's a lot about product. And so they have some type of product, typically on the consumer side, that is driving activity, and then as opposed to just holding in a high rate account. And then the third thing I thought was kind of interesting, you just raised the point, Carlos, which is a focus on commercial or business banking. So those were the 3 traits. I mean, it's like, do you have one of those 3 things going on, or more than one of those 2 or 3 things going on? Of course, a lot of people have digital account openings stood up, and it's still a 5-10 minute long process versus a 3 or 4 minute process. So we can go through examples and point people to, okay, this is how they do it. It just seems like many times, to your point, both that you've raised about fraud, the fraud and risk folks have is just sort of getting comfortable with knocking down the barriers. Because as our colleague John Meyer likes to say, it's like, listen, if you ask somebody when they're opening up an account if they're a terrorist, they're going to answer no, whether they are or not, right? So it's not really information that's that helpful. So why are you continuing to ask it? And it's the kinds of things that Capital One doesn't ask, and that many of our community bank clients do ask. But I guess, hey, one other thing I would ask is there anything else you're hearing around the halls today that you thought we should talk about? Well, before I let you guys go back to your busy marketing lives.
Can I say one thing just related to what you just mentioned real fast? Your question about is marketing in decline, and the 3 things that you just mentioned to grow deposits. Digital acquisition, right? Account opening. You know what you need for that? Marketing, to help actually drive some of that awareness, things to bring it in. And then the engagement piece, marketing's front and center. And then the third part, at least on the small business side. So it's just interesting how these things tie together. As far as new things or other things, I would say fraud is a big one. We're actually hearing that one a lot. But outside of that, I'm just curious what y'all think about the announcement. You wrote an article on it around the Chase Media Solutions, because I think that's going to light a fire under people as well, as far as if you want to look at marketing's impact and what it can be. It may not impact you right now, 6 months, 12 months, but 2-3 years from now, that's some of the things that we're looking at closer as well. We're starting to hear more is like, how do we use marketing and data more effectively around these targeted offers and things like that?
Laura, anything else you're hearing in the hallways or at the coffee maker, rather, the barista? What's the barista talking about with these folks?
She does not have oat milk at the coffee machine, which I was very unhappy about outside of that. No, it was all about, it is actually about AI. Our lunch conversation today was with a credit union that is super frustrated because they can't use AI the way that they want to, and they know it could help them. And how are we going to, and my colleague and I were trying to help give them tips of things you could bring to leadership and ways that you can show that it's not so dangerous if you're using it in these few ways. And I think really supporting our banks and credit union friends in helping get approval to move some of these forward, and even in just small steps.
Ron, anything else before we?
I want to just address both Carlos's and Laura. Was it Laura, right? I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I was just getting on your case, buddy. I remember that. First of all, to the Chase point, I think that was a brilliant move. I think and a misunderstood move. They are not selling data; they are simply acting on it. And in an environment where you've got to be absolutely batshit crazy, I can say that on there, right? Batshit crazy to think that interchange rates are going to ever increase again in the future. And overdraft. You got to be thinking about non-interest income. It's a cultural change to be thinking about your online or digital banking platform as a advertising platform, and they put the stake in the ground, and there's going to be a lot of community financial institutions going to have to step up to it, not just culturally as a thing, but figuring out, oh shit, we got to get our data in order. And so I think that's the thing. Now, the AI point, the session that I had the other day here, actually was yesterday, but it feels like it was 8 days ago at this point. And no, I didn't drink that much last night. I did get to meet Jim Gaffigan though, so that was a big highlight last night. But the message, hot pockets. The message of the session was really about, look, for all the hype and all the scared stuff, the AI is about accelerating human productivity and creativity. And my kind of guidelines for this is that you've got to drive bottom-up experimentation with top-down risk management and guardrails. These are not digital account opening systems. These are not loan origination systems. It's akin to spreadsheets. They're tools that people figure out how to use to get their job done. You can't capture all of the potential opportunities. And it's like 40 years ago when spreadsheets, really became popular, and you had the power users who knew how to write macros and then developed them for other people. But then the skills rose. Got to drive the utilization bottom up. You got to drive the risk management top down.
The friends we had lunch with had gone to your session and they brought up the spreadsheet story. So your message is resonating, just so you know.
Yeah, I think one other thing that one of my big takeaways is just getting specific with examples that people can react to. Ron, to your point around interchange declining, I think one of the things that I'm trying to be very mindful of is when we're talking with banks and credit unions or folks in the fintech community is complaining about the regulations, complaining about interchange being under pressure. Okay, let's just all agree it's all going to continue to get worse. Okay, what the hell do you do about it? Give me 3 examples. If I don't like all 3 of them or any of them, at least it might give me an idea for a 4th or a 5th. But care enough about people to be specific, whether it's in content or it's in an example on stage or whatever. And I think I've seen and heard that here, so that's good. I'm really, really thankful that you guys took some time to join us. And I should also point out, this is you also have earned this is like a bit like a LinkedIn badge, I think. But it's physical. It's not just virtual. This is a coveted double album coaster set. Don't try to put a needle on these and play them; that will hurt your stereo. But you can put your bourbon on it, or your glass of red wine. And you betcha. And thanks again for joining us. And hey, thanks everybody for joining us out there. And hope to see you again on another episode of Fintech Hustle sometime soon in a hallway near you, or perhaps again in Vegas. See ya.